Good morning. Hello and welcome to the Blindsided podcast. And today we're talking about storytelling and how we are hearing stories and how we are sharing experiences and what type of mindset we're coming from. I won't go through them now, but this is exciting because movies use this, we use this, sales use this, influencers use this type of thing. And I didn't even know about it until I started doing my homework and understanding there's an actual methodology and way to best be an influencer or a guide, somebody that wants to help and coach and do. So that's what we're going to go through today. My name is Charlie Collins with the Blindsided, co-host of the Blindsided podcast, and I'm a speaker and a trainer and just a grateful guy this morning.
Good morning, Charlie. My name is Brenda Hayden. I am also the co-host of the Blindsided podcast. I have a company called Time for a 10. We're an emotional awareness, emotional intelligence coaching service. And we actually use these things that we're going to talk about today to help people to get at the exact nature of their conditioned thinking. We have them challenge their belief system. We have them challenge their 0 to 7 programming. Kids get imprinted at 0 to 7 when their brain is in a theta wave state. So we help them unlearn. And they end up having a much more free, beautiful, serene life where they don't attach meaning to everything that happens. They don't become a victim, right? And they just have a better relationship with themselves, with the God source universe, and with other people as a result. So I'm excited to be here and talk about this. I want to say good morning to Molly. She's the first one in here to join as always. Hi, Molly. And hit it, Charlie. Let's do this.
All right. I can do that. Look at that. All right. So I first just wanted to talk about a movie, 2 movies real quick. And one is Jaws and one is Rocky. So in those movies, first of all, Spielberg came out with, Rocky, Jaws in 1975 in the summer. And he took a big risk because movies didn't come out in the summer. And this is just a little fact. They didn't come out in the summer because who wants to watch a movie in the summer? And who would ever come out with a movie that I can't go swimming anymore because a shark might eat me? And it was a huge success. So anyway, what are the elements of a movie like that? Why did it keep us on the edge of our seats? Well, because it had a victim, had several victims in it, people that got bit. It had a villain, Jaws. It had a hero who saved the day and blew up Jaws, and it had a guide. A guide was and I don't remember the names of those, but the guide was, teaching and helping guide the whole process to get rid of the problem. And then we look at the movie Rocky real quick. We got Mick, the guide. We have the villain, Apollo. We have the hero, Rocky. And we have the victim, people kind of Paulie and Adrian. This is terrible. What you're putting yourself through. So why is that? The movies that use these frames that keep us suspenseful on the edge of our seats, they have this framework in it. But you ever go to a movie or hear a story or somebody sharing with you and it's like boring? That is when these elements are left out. And unfortunately in the world now, it seems most stories that get attention or suck us in have victim and villain mostly in them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's so true, Charlie. And so why is this important, one might ask? Why are we talking about these different roles, right, in a movie that engage people? And the truth is that in any circumstance, in any relationship, in any event that's going on, you self-identify by telling yourself a story. Mm-hmm. And you play a role in that story as it relates to whatever it is that you're talking about, whether it's your next door neighbor and you have a problem with them, or you're waiting in a line. We talk about that a lot. Or what am I going to do today? Or what kind of day am I having, right? We tell ourselves a story about what's happening in our life on any given day. Mm-hmm. And we usually put ourselves, it's just human nature. And part of it is because this is what's been coming in through movies and other things in society and news. we choose one of those roles to be. And part of what we're going to ask people to do in this podcast and moving forward is to pause, to challenge the story you're telling yourself, to not pick a role, and to just kind of let it unfold by observing what's happening instead of engaging with what's happening. There's a big difference. Observing, even observing, not just observing what's happening, but observing where you want to go, what story you want to tell yourself, and what role you want to play. This is the kind of thing that happened when I did that spontaneous thought journal. I got to see the role that my subconscious brain was putting me in when I wasn't thinking about how I was thinking.
So metacognition wasn't happening.
Nope.
And so first of all, are we aware of how we're sharing experiences? Are we coming from the place of this happened to me and I need to sell you on that so you come over to my team and agree with me that this is terrible? I cannot believe this happened to me. Or are we sharing it in a way that I am awesome? I am the hero. Look at me. And where that's good is where if you're an inspirational, motivational keynote speaker, that's a good place to share something that puts people that they just want to jump up and go at the game of life. They're inspired and feel motivated. That's fine. But and then there's the guide, like what happened, what it was like, what it's like now. And that not only it kind of encompasses all of it. I was a victim at one time. The villain was my thinking. I used to think it was outside of me, but I started to learn. And I had a guide in my life that brought me through. And and those are the types of things. I'm not saying, as you go through your day, Brenda, you just said it. What is the most important conversation you're going to have today?
What I have with myself.
Yes.
What I have with myself.
Right. That's one of the slides in my presentations is I click and I don't put the answer. And then I say, click with yourself. And that is the story we hold of us, the belief in self.
Absolutely, Charlie. Let me ask you a question. When you are having an experience, what's the lens that you're having that experience through in your experience? What is the lens you're having that experience through?
Me.
What about you?
Well, it could be, so when I'm having an experience, which is the end of everything, an experience which triggers my emotion. What lens am I? Well, it depends. I mean, I know what the old lens was. It was the poor me and dishonest lens. And then it was reality and how is this happening for me lens.
Yeah. So our default, like when a computer boots up, right? Our operating system is going to boot up in our past experiences. That's the lens we look through when something first comes into our awareness. And until you build a practice, right? Until you do it enough times where it becomes habitual. And what is it that we do enough times? We challenge that lens and we ground ourselves into the present moment. And we don't bring the past into the present experience because it stops you from having a new experience. It stops you from co-creating an experience that you want, really. The lens that we normally look through is the past. And it's just habit, because part of why I believe this happens is because everybody's always rushing all the time. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to be here. I got to, there's this constant fear. We're in our amygdala all the time, in the fear part of our brain. And we're not stopping and pausing and even saying, what kind of experience do I want to have from this that's coming into my awareness? You actually do get to choose, right? You get to choose what kind of experience you want to have. We talked about it last week when Paul Selig ran away from me, right? And higher self, God source universe guides, whoever's channeling through me, right? Said, how do you want to have, what kind of experience do you want to have with this? And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I could either play the victim, oh, he doesn't like me, I'm not good enough. I could go to all those past childhood traumas and I could bring that and say, see, I'm not good enough. Or I can say, this has nothing to do with me because I'm not even a blip on his radar. This was not personal. And move forward from there. And that's the path I chose to take. And I had a great retreat, great personal experiences with him after that, because I co-created that. I made the decision to see it differently than the past would have allowed me to if I was just looking through that lens, which is our default. We're going to pull in the past. Hi,
Yep.
Carrie. Good morning.
So also just we're streaming today out on Facebook, LinkedIn, a couple of YouTube channels, and this is it's wonderful because today's technology allows us the ability to sit in different areas and different homes, and that's a good story. Except I'm sweating. It's hot in here. All right. So
and I'm trying to get us it says we're streaming on my TikTok channel. But
okay, good.
I have not seen it there, so I'm going to work on that, guys.
So what we're talking about, well, first of all, we got to understand, or we've got to come to terms with and realize that we're in a story, that our thinking is just recycling. I get diagnosed at age 9. I'm declared legally blind at age 13. My story shifts very quick to I'll never be able to. And some of that was true. I'll never be able to drive legally. I'll never, I'm not going to be a pilot, a jet fighter pilot. And I'm not going to race cars. I'm not going to be able to do some truth to that. But the story was, but that's all I can do. And now I can't anymore. So that story, it came into play with as I tried to move forward in life. I tried to go to college, but I failed out. But I didn't. I feared out because of that story. Yeah. I'm not smart enough. Everyone else is better than me. And I didn't know that story, that conversation I was having, not out loud all the time, but always internal, that how bad it was affecting me. And Brenda, when we share with people, if we're sharing out of the victim mind or the villain, like, this is why I had to take these actions, and it's justified. Like, and if you can't see it and approve of it, you're the idiot. and it felt so good to bring those people in. And when they would say, yeah, I can see why you acted that way, it's like, oh, good. Thank you. I feel better now. But in our world now, if I tried to call you and bring you over to why I acted like a 3-year-old or like my old self, and I did something that was childish and like I was powerless, I had to do something, you would be like, hello, no, that doesn't work. We don't talk about things. We don't go down that path. Right. But Brenda, it didn't happen. Like, I didn't become aware to this. I don't know what metacognition is. I don't know I have the ability to step back, pause, and go, where am I going with this? How do I what is the end in mind that I want? How can I share this story with somebody that maybe helps them or at least inspires them, instead of they walk away going, man, that guy, oh, and then they share that negative experience I had with somebody. So now when you pass it on, you're passing on toxic garbage instead of inspiring help.
Right. And what just came into my awareness as you were talking is this VIA Institute, the strengths. You're diagnosed with a disability, right? You're blind. And instead of focusing on, I'm blind, I can't, right? We're going to move into, so what are you good at? What can you do? What can you focus on that's for your highest good, that's for your benefit, so that you can lead a full life, right? So here's a really good example. My son, Michael, when he was 4 years old, had a traumatic brain injury. He fell out of a shopping cart when he was with his dad at Home Depot, right? And he shattered his skull. Now, without telling the whole long story, it was terribly tragic. He's half blind in each eye. So he's legally blind just like you are, right? So, and he's been legally blind since he was 4 years old. I have not heard him one time say, I'm blind, I can't. He says, I can't drive because I can't see, right? He'll say things like that. And here's the difference. When he was 4 years old And, he was in the hospital for an entire year. And then he was in a wheelchair for several years after that because the whole right side of his body was paralyzed. We told him from the time he was a child that he was a miracle. That's all we focused on. Cannot believe you survived that accident. You are a miracle. And when you talk to him today, one of the things that will definitely come out during the conversation, he'll say, "Did you know I'm a miracle?" And that's how he sees himself. He sees himself as a miracle, right? So, and the point in telling that story is, you can tell yourself a different story and change your experience. You can help somebody by telling them, and that's what we do in coaching. We tell them a different story about themselves that starts to change the way that they see themselves. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I spoke at a conference once, one of the first times in like 2000 something 7, and there was 125 people there, and I don't know that I want to bring the framework in. I want to bring them down, and then I want to give them some tools, and then I want to start and I want to end on a note where they feel like I can do anything. I don't know this. I'm just sharing and my story, and it worked pretty decently. And I recorded it and I watched it, and then I studied and I learned. Like, I was petrified doing it, first of all, Brenda. So what lens was I under? Me. I was thinking of me and what they thought about me and how I want them to like me, clap for me, and make me feel like I'm worthy. And I didn't know that. I mean, I just was my default being at the time. And then as I started breaking it down and looking at it and thinking, it has nothing to do with me. Yes, I need to do a good job and bring boatloads of value and show them that, I was the right guy for them to sit down and give me their time. That's all true. But it isn't. Once I detached from this is about me to this is about them. And I got, I still got those little, but that was more of excitement, not like, oh my God, I have to perform in a certain way so they like me. It was, I am deeply concerned about delivering and coming from the heart, reaching the heart. So you walk away with something that will help you.
Absolutely. The motive is key to anything. And when your motive is authentic and sincere and it's to be of service, which comes naturally for you and I. It didn't for a long time, but since we did the work, it's like there is no better life than to be of service to somebody else and watch the lights come on or see them get relief from a problem that they were like there. It's infectious to watch and be part of that process. I want to read a comment here from Imagination, the Awakening. And sadly, at no fault of any one person, the story gets perpetuated by people who are living in a trapped story of their own. Continue to perpetuate a limiting story until the cycle breaks. And, that's a really good point, until this cycle breaks. And how does this cycle, Charlie, get broken? How do we break the cycle? What usually happens? I don't want to answer my own question. I'll give you a chance to answer.
How do I break the cycle?
Yeah, how does this cycle of perpetuating a false narrative, how does that cycle break usually?
It breaks, well, because self-reflection, self-pity, depression. I'm like, God, I sit in this spot like, is this all there is? Is there anything? Yeah. Surrender is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, an existential crisis. You get sick and tired of being sick and tired, or you have some kind of like, it stops working. And then you become aware that it's not working because you're freaking miserable and everyone around you is miserable and no one wants to be around you. And you change. You get enough pain and you change. It doesn't have to be that way. But typically that's how it works for most people. Some kind of crisis, some kind of existential crisis, some kind of huge falling out. It doesn't have to reach an acute level of pain before you make that change. You can make it today.
With a guide.
Yeah, a conditioned mind can't fix a conditioned mind. We know this. So yeah, with help. We don't do any, and I want to preface that. We don't do any of this work by ourselves. That's not going to get you very far.
You mean a solitary self-appraisal doesn't seem to work?
No, no,
Uh,
no. We're
and,
not supposed to do this alone. That's why there's 8 billion people on the planet. All these souls, you know, we got to
why?
help each other.
It's no fun.
Oh my
And
God.
I find it like I like discovering. I'm curious, uncovering, discovering, discarding things in my life. I
Mm.
like I like you know I used to be the I used to say in my I'm the guy that can offer you a new prescription. I am helping remove blind spots.
Mm.
And offer you a new pair of glasses. There's all sorts of spins on it. I can help you see within yourself that you have a new prescription just waiting to drive your life, but it's blocked right now by very dark sunglasses.
Yeah. So, this is a good time to ask the question and have people ask themselves this question: why do we lie to ourselves? Why is it that we lie to ourselves? When before I did this work, not only was I lying to myself just about everything, right? I was building a story that suited what I wanted, even if what I wanted was really bad for me. I built a story around it. It's not that bad. Oh, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm only hurting myself. So, you know, the lies that we tell ourselves, how do we break that cycle? Like, how do you start getting honest? Really, it's about self-honesty and then honesty with others. How do you cross over to that bridge? So many people I know, including myself, before I did this work, I was petrified of being honest. What are they going to think of me? Are they going to judge me? Are they going to be mad at me? I'm supposed, I've been presenting myself as this person, but I'm really this person. How do I recover from that? How do people make that leap, Charlie?
By trying, by hiring somebody, by so how did I do it? I just leaned into it and I tried it. And the guide, the mentor, the person I was starting to work with didn't look at me and say, "Wow, you are a loser." They didn't do that. They listened and they helped me see what was keeping me with the dark sunglasses. And over time, they showed me that new prescription was already a part of who I was. And they helped me see it within me so I could then start coming from that.
Yeah. It starts with getting honest with one person first, and that's yourself.
Yeah.
That's yourself saying, admitting to yourself that the story you're telling yourself and the role that you're putting yourself in isn't true. It isn't true. You just have to say to yourself, I know I'm lying to myself, right? And then from there, as you start chewing on that, getting honest with yourself, I know that I am being dishonest with myself about this person, place, thing, or situation, or my own behavior, especially my own behavior. And then you find one person to share it with, whether it's a coach, a priest. I know someone who used a priest recently and it was really good for them. A mentor, not somebody who's going to say, oh, you're fine. No, not somebody who's going to co-sign your dishonesty, right? You don't want to go talk to someone who's at the same level that you're at.
No.
Right? And you share it with that one person. And normally what you're going to get back is compassion, understanding, some validation about how much courage it took to get to that place. And then, it mushrooms out from there, right? You could start with a coach even. So, honesty with yourself, admitting to yourself that what you're doing is wrong, how you're living is wrong, the story you're telling yourself about yourself is wrong, right? Questioning that belief system. And then now you bring somebody else in and you share it with another human being. That's really how the process works.
It does. And so I envision dynamics, the store I used to own in town here. that sold adaptive technology for people. Really, it sold independence. It sold them a new prescription,
Mhm.
and it offered tools and things to help them move from I can't and blindness sucks to okay, maybe there's something to work with here. So then when somebody would come into the store and say, first of all, they were the victim, and the villain was male, the missalette, the TV guide back in the day. It was anything in print material on a TV, and just life around them was the villain. It was like everywhere they looked, they couldn't do it anymore. So they came in with a chip on their shoulder, with a belief that it's over and I don't know why I'm here. And I heard that maybe you guys could help us. And I'm like, all right. So, and I don't want to come across as the hero, more the guide and this is sales, So, okay, I now know the problem. I mean, I pretty much know it. So I try to understand the problem, right? And that's how we work with people. And then, what are the things that are triggering you to get deeper into the problem? Well, now I know that. So are you open to the possibility of me, holding your hand, not really, but guiding you into a process, into a new way of thinking and living and acting that might help solve some of your problems? Oh, I guess, like you said, well, do you think you can handle that with me today? Yes. So I would then start to show them, here's what it's like. This is what we can do. And this is what it could look like once you start implementing these tools into your life. And it was awesome. Like you said, to see the lights go on. People would start reading on a desktop video magnification system back and forth and like, look at me like I'm reading. I said, I know you are. And like now they believe that they believe in themselves a little more, because what they did, they believed I believed, right?
Yes.
Well, this guy seems, I've been legally blind forever. I'm independently running a company. I am, I'm doing all these amazing things. Yeah, but you're younger than me. So what? And you're older. Why do you got to bring that story in? Get rid of that. Let's pretend we're the same age. So I had fun with all the different ways to help people to just lean into it, just take a little step towards, because I knew, and you and I as coaches know, that if you're willing to surrender, if you're willing to just lean into it, take that initial step, something will happen. It's called, you'll have a little more peace and ease in your life, and it will help move you more forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
Any other comments?
I don't see any other comments. No.
Anyone have anything they want us to talk about? I mean, not like the flowers or anything, but
Yeah. So why don't we open up the chat and take a couple of questions or comments? If you guys feel so moved as to put something in the comments, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about the 4 different categories, right? The victim mindset, the villain mindset, the hero mindset, and the guide mindset. I think, one of the things that's important when you're in a victim mindset, and I think a lot of people don't even realize sometimes that they're in a victim mindset. I had to really pay attention to it. Like I'd be working on a spreadsheet and I'd make a mistake and I'd be like, oh, again, right? I would allow myself to be upset over the smallest little mistake I would make. Now that's really coming from a victim mindset, because really, who cares? Like, what is the big deal if I make a slight mistake on something? Actually, what is the big deal if I make a mistake at all? That's how we learn, by making mistakes. So there are all these little small ways that I create a victim mindset for myself. I got stuck in traffic the other day. I was like, oh, see, again, I'm going to be late now. Like I started this whole story and I stopped myself that I'm like, none of that's happening. If I'm stuck in traffic, I can put on an audio book. I get to listen to a book that I've been dying to listen to. That's it. You can make, what is that saying? You make something out of something.
Lemons out of lemonade?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, you can make lemonade out of lemons anytime you want. You can make lemonade out of lemons anytime you want. And all it takes is a second to change your mindset. But you have to be aware. You have to allow yourself to become aware of how you're thinking. But I think it's important to say that many of us are in a victim mindset because that's the fear structure that's been created to keep us distracted. So we'll continue to consume and produce, consume and produce. That means I'm going to work, 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 and spend, spend, spend. That's the whole fear matrix that's been built around, you have to have this kind of car and you got to go to this kind of school and, the separation sickness. And, I read a recent study that said, it has now become okay. The message is it's okay to harm your neighbor to get ahead because your survival depends on you getting ahead, which is not true. None of that is true. And the mindset that's out there today, especially in young people that are, in the matrix, that aren't awakened, that aren't, moving outside of the fear structure, is it's okay to hurt my neighbor to get ahead. I'm going to cheat on this exam so I can get into that school, or I'm going to, sabotage somebody else's success or bully somebody or whatever it may be so that I can feel safe and get ahead. And that's the messaging that's, out there right now. And it's not good. We need to work.
No, and it's not, it doesn't, it might feel like it works in the short term. And how do we start, moving or noticing, or, first be curious. Like, do you notice when you're around different people and they share experiences or want to tell you certain things and it's engaging and you like when that person does that? Or do you notice there's certain that it's like, I can't wait for this to end. It doesn't feel good after, because you can clearly see they're not taking responsibility. It seems to be bringing you down a little. So that was first thing to do is who you hanging out with, what type of messaging, stories, how are they sharing their experiences? Is it uplifting? Is it feel like a guide? Is there a way for you to grow from? And any story too. And then you move it to, how am I doing it? Do I notice that when I enter a room, people go, or do they say, lean in and listen, and that was for me. It's like, yeah, I want to share a story, but I know the story. It's a good ending, and not all stories have good endings, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But how I saw the story of losing my dog and how I share it and my experience of it. Just had a friend on the phone who found his cat dead in the front lawn, devastated. And he shared it. And he didn't share it as poor me, just shared the story in a powerful way that put me back when I went through with my golden retriever, and I was able to be there for him. I felt empathy, compassion, and I didn't say, oh, you got to do this or you got to do that. It was amazing. If I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't have been able to be as strong and there for this gentleman.
Yeah. Yeah. So transmuting a painful or difficult experience so that you could use it to be of service to somebody else is that's the lifeline. I have shared on this podcast many times that the difficulties in my childhood, I would not change a single thing that happened to me in my life period, because all those experiences have been transmuted into assets that I can use now to help somebody else through a similar experience. When I have a client that's in a loop of victim, 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 one of the first things I ask them after validating, hearing, empathizing, sympathizing, all of those things that someone in that mode needs to be able to move past it, they need to feel seen, heard, and understood, is what would it look like without that? What would life look like for you without that? And they don't even, most of them stop dead in their tracks. They're like, I never really thought about what it would feel like not to be thinking about that. Well, let's do a visualization session. What would your life look like without that in the forefront of your mind? And I let them go on a little visualization journey. It's beautiful because they see in that moment that they don't have to bring that with them everywhere they go anymore. There's a couple of comments in here. So Rooted in the Mind said, hey, I've been all of them. I don't know what he means, all of them. Type something else so I know what you mean. All of them.
I
What is
think
them?
he's been the victim, the villain.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Yes, we're all of them on any given day, right?
Yeah.
And Imagination, the Awakening said, resistance is the seeding of resilience. Discovering the story beyond the story takes us from a victim to the hero of our own story. That's beautiful. Yes, we have been all of them. And we probably traverse all of them on any given day. And if we pay attention to our thinking, we can choose which one we want to be in. I like to be in the guide most of the time, where I can just take an experience that someone's having, identify with it, and share how I got to the other side, or someone I know got to the other side, and watch what happens.
And I wrote a book, Brenda, called Tripping into the Light, that talks about the victim, and the villains. And then it sort of talks about the guide and how the hero comes too, because we're all heroes in our own light. But if I'm just telling you how great I am, and I'm here and I did this, and and I'm not thinking about helping you on your journey, well, that I don't like that. Like, I don't like hearing that. So I don't want to portray that. It's like we always say, there were certain things we did to get to where we are. If you're comfortable where you are, you're not living with a facade, which means you're not living a double life, or you're not being 100% honest to yourself. And I'm not always. And then I go, oh, shoot. And, but I catch it. If that's, then you might want to start thinking about there's steps. There's things you can do, and there's ways to shift, because if we're in victim and villain, we're not being honest. If we're starting to move into, really, I need help, I want to get moved from, and I want to find a guide so I can become a guide. That's where the glory is. It's serving, helping, and being there for others.
So I want to ask a question, because I've gotten this question before. I don't know how many people out there might have use for this answer, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. When you're dealing, and we talked about it before the podcast, when you're dealing with someone who's so engrossed in their own dishonest story about themselves to themselves, how do you shake them loose from that? How do you shake them loose from that? What are some of the ways that we could help people that believe their own lies? Because I've had some experiences with people that absolutely positively believe their own lies, the story that they tell themselves, the way they justify their behavior, how it's okay to be doing what they're doing. How do you help someone like that, Charlie?
Well, first I ask them, is it true? And then I say, hold on, can you absolutely 100% honestly, is it true? And then I ask, because Byron Katie's work helps, how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? And then the string of bad stuff. And then I ask them, who would you be without that thought? Can you imagine? It's like, well, that's not possible. I have to have that thought. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You're bringing that suffering into you. No one's doing it to you.
Yeah.
That's how I start with someone, because that's what happened with me. Somebody like a Tony Robbins. You ever seen him disrupt somebody who can't get out of the lie? He's like 7 foot tall, and he screams at somebody, which disrupts you, which severs you, and then he just opens the door.
Molly says pray for them as well. That's a really good tip. I pray for people all the time. The other thing is not to be afraid. I used to be very afraid of confronting people when I knew they were lying. And I'm not so afraid of doing that anymore, because to enable a lie is to co-sign a lie. To enable a lie is to co-sign a lie. And Rooted in the Mind says they recommend you share your experience, strength, and your hope. And you live the steps, and within time they see it. That's a beautiful, gentle, and appropriate response. Yeah, you model good behavior. Not even good behavior. You model honesty. I don't want to call it good behavior or bad behavior. You model honesty, and it kind of, I mean, that's what we do. I'm in AA. That's what we do in AA when I sponsor people. And I do 10s with them. We model when we share.
And just remember, enabling is disabling.
It is, Charlie. So we also, in response to that, we have to be prepared for people to call us out on their stuff. People do it to me all the time. And I'm like, ugh, it's like, initially it's like nails on a chalkboard. And then I'm so grateful for that person having the courage, right, to say, you know what, Bren, that was wrong. Or, that wasn't nice. Or, you're off the mark here. And they lead me on a journey that's going to help me in that moment and every day after that. Every day after that.
And Brenda, you know what's amazing is that there's people that are listening and will watch this down the road that don't have a clue what nails on a chalkboard means.
Painful, excruciating, hard to hear, hard to hear.
But those people don't even know what clapping erasers are.
Yeah.
That was one of the teacher picked me and my buddy, and we would make a mess. It would go everywhere. You'd get the chalk out, it would be in my hair all over. I'm like, I love clapping erasers.
Yeah, we're dating ourselves. I'm dating myself.
Nah. Yeah, well, it takes what it takes in order to say that's enough. I'm putting a flag in the ground. I want to learn where I'm coming from. I want to share differently. I want to inspire. I want to get to the truth of what my suffering is so I can go out and be of service and help others, because like you said, Brenda, there's a lot of suffering out there right now.
There is.
And the solutions that are being offered aren't that good. They're just Band-Aids.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
What do you think?
It's 10:12. It's a fine time to end. I want to thank Rooted in the Mind for the great comments.
Stanley.
And also, who is that? Stanley?
That's Stan the Man.
Stan and Imagination.
Rooted in the Mind. I'm
Rooted
sorry.
in the Mind isn't Stan the Man. It's Stan, but it's not Stan the Man.
No, Rooted in the Mind. That is Shane.
Shane. Hi, Shane. Does Shane have a talk show?
No, he has a Rooted in the Mind YouTube channel. It's awesome.
Oh, I'm gonna go check it out. Rooted in the Mind has a YouTube channel. Check it out, everyone.
Yes.
And then Imagination the Awakening. That's Stan? That's Stanley. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. And of course, Molly and Carrie, and some things have scrolled away now.
Well, Brenda, also, if people watch this on YouTube but don't log in, we don't know they're here, and which a lot of people do.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So anyway, this has been fantastic today, and thank you. And I'm going to sharpen my saw today and come from a place of knowing how I'm sharing experiences and how I'm listening to others.
Me too. Me too, Charlie. Been a great podcast. Appreciate you guys.
Bye-bye.